Hello everybody and welcome to the back of Chili's. Can you please go back inside and give me one of those sliders? They're so good. Hi everybody, my name's King Noosme. I asked you guys what episode of the Nightmare Room you wanted to see and you guys voted for Camp Nowhere. The Nightmare Room is one of the more lesser known R.L. Stine TV shows, but over the years it's kind of being brought up more and more, so it's not as niche as it used to be. After the success of Goosebumps, R.L. Stine decided to team up with WB Kids and adapt his other book series, The Nightmare Room, into a TV show on the network. Sadly, the TV show only lasted for 13 episodes in one season, which is actually more episodes than there are books. Kind of strange. And some of the episodes aren't even about the books. I really think they expected this show to take off like Goosebumps did, but sadly it really didn't. Especially since the show had so many young, famous actors like Amanda Bynes, Drake Bell, Dylan and Cole Sprouse, Frankie Muniz, Shia LaBeouf, Brenda Song, Kaylee Cuoco, and so many more. Unlike Goosebumps, this show tried to have more of a Twilight Zone kind of vibe. And by vibe, I mean they pretty much copy the Twilight Zone intro. Before each episode, we are introduced to the show by R.L. Stine, who's not actually R.L. Stine.
I'm R.L. Stine.
You can't tell me that this guy...
Hello, I'm R.L. Stine. I write the Goosebumps books.
Suddenly sounds like that. Maybe he started smoking or something. Maybe his voice just got really deep and messed up, you know? No, of course it isn't him. R.L. Stine is actually played by James Avery, who you probably know as Uncle Phil in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. The show itself is a little more mature than Goosebumps. Well, the books are, at least. But that doesn't mean it doesn't get pretty wacky at times. Today we're taking a look at the season and series finale of the show, Camp Nowhere. Not to be confused with the Christopher Lloyd movie. I think I'd much rather go to that camp than this one. It's the only two-parter episode in the series, and the episodes premiered in the scariest time of year. March in 2002. It was written by Paul Birnbaum, who worked on the Halloween Town movies, and it was directed by James Marshall. The episode is based on a book with the same name in the Nightmare Room series, but it's pretty different from the episode, so I'll talk about all the differences later on in the video. But yeah, that's enough yapping, let's get into the episode. Wait, but first, I want to start making merch for you guys. And the first merch endeavor I decided to go with was making a little plushie of myself. But it's not as easy as it seems to do that. I'm working with a company called Gimme Swag, who offered to make a plushie of me if we can get 100 people to pledge $2 and promise that they will buy my plushie. As of me recording this, we're already about 40% of the way there, so we don't have that much more. So if you want to be one of the first people to own some of my merch and have a little plushie of me, go to the link below and pledge $2 and you will get a plushie of me. And I know what you're thinking, hey, what if 100 people don't pledge and you suck? Well, it's no worries, you'll get your $2 pledge back and you won't be billed. So yeah, click the link below if you're interested, and it takes 2 seconds to sign up. It's not hard at all. Okay, back to the episode. We start this episode by meeting our main character, Russell. He's trying to enjoy his lunch alone when this guy named Dave comes up and starts bothering him about some senior tradition that they have at Camp Hawkwood. But as they talk, a totally real and legit snake starts slithering over Russell's shoulder. Dave pulls too many pranks on Russell, so he doesn't believe him at first, but when he takes a quick glance... Oh, what? It was fake? Oh God, I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell it was a fake snake. Apparently, Russell is known around camp to be a bit of a scaredy cat, and he gets picked on pretty regularly by this guy, Dave. But luckily, his other friend, Charlotte, is always there to protect his honor. And then there's this other senior, Erin. She's there too. She just kind of hangs out most of the time. Later that night, they have a ceremony around a campfire. Every year, the seniors of the camp just spend one night in this creepy old cabin in the woods. That's pretty much it. But they love to make it dramatic. So their camp counselor, Ramos, starts the meeting by saying,
"Now, as you all know, I am a direct descendant of the Onondaga tribe."
What? No, you're not? Bro, you're white as hell. He goes on to talk about how even after camp is over, he lives on the campgrounds and hunts and fishes for food.
My sister goes to college with him. He lives in Shaker Heights.
Oh, so bro's just a pathological liar. Okay. He goes on to say that the Onondaga spirits are peaceful and the campers who brave the overnight stay usually return. Usually. But sometimes the campers don't make it back, and the angry Onondaga spirits take them to their ghost camp, trapping them in the ghost camp forever and ever. Now, the group that we met earlier have to brave a whole night in a haunted cabin and take this creepy looking doll with them to protect them. Ramus asks the group to stand up so that he can bless them and keep them safe on their trip.
To bring these young men and women home safely!
Maybe it worked. That was kind of impressive, actually. I'm sure he did that on purpose. I don't know how he would have done that, though. Pause! Let's talk about the actors real quick. Russell is played by Sam Jones III, and you might know him as Pete Ross in the show Smallville, where he co-starred with the girl who's playing Charlotte, Allison Mack. She played Chloe Sullivan in Smallville. It's kind of a fun coincidence that they're in this show and that show co-starring together. I've actually never seen the show, though, so I don't know if I can recommend it. Maybe my friend the Pumpkinator knows about it.
It's good!
Oh. Cool, yeah, I guess it's good, yeah. Their friend Erin is played by Kathy Wagner, and sadly, she's not in anything of note. I mean, she's in the Poltergeist 2 somewhere, but I didn't want to try and find her. And lastly, we have their friend Dave, who is played by Kyle Gibson, and he's also not in anything of note, just small roles in multiple TV shows. And their counselor Ramos is played by Brandon Quinn, and he was actually in a Creepshow episode, The Last Subaraya, as Wade. As Russell is getting ready for bed, one of the kids at the camp asks him,
"Aren't you scared about the ghost camp?"
Russell tells the kid that he isn't, which is a lie. So the kid decides to give him a little scare by telling him about a kid named Scott Murphy who disappeared when he did the overnight challenge. And the strangest part about his disappearance is his parents still get letters every year. And as this kid is telling him this spooky story, someone starts trying to break into their cabin.
Didn't scare you, did I?
A little. Why the hell did I hear a roar? Did you roar? Do you have like a pet cougar with you or something? What's going on here? But it's just Ramos who tells the boys to get some sleep so that they're prepared for the next day. But before they hit the hay, Russell asks Ramos if the ghost camp is actually real. We are lucky that Ramos is actually a pretty nice guy, and he explains to Russell that it's just a silly little thing that they do to scare the younger kids at the camp, and there's really nothing to staying in the house. And then he tells Russell that if he's too scared, he doesn't have to go if he doesn't want to. The next morning they wake up and Russell finds that someone has etched "You will never return" into the floor. And it looks like somebody snuck in through the night and chiseled the words into the floor.
You mean like with a chisel?
The fuck did I just say? What? Anyways, it's almost impossible for this to be here because someone had to have heard the person chiseling into the floor, especially Russell or Ramos, because they are literally right there. Later that day, the group head off to the haunted cabin. And along the way, they see that the campers have already made some tombstones for them just in case they don't make it back. Obviously, this is a joke, but it actually freaks Russell out a little bit. But everything does, so what's new? Along the way, Russell and Charlotte have a conversation. Russell is still pretty freaked out about the words on the floor, and he thinks that the cabin is actually haunted. But Charlotte talks some sense into him and tells him that Ramos is just trying to scare him, and she helps him calm down. Thank God Russell has Charlotte, because he would probably die from anxiety if she wasn't around. And a little bit later on the trail, they stop to take a short water break where Aaron takes a giant swig of dirt? Ew, what the hell? Of course, they think it's another one of Ramos's pranks, but he promises that he has no idea what happened to her water and it wasn't his doing. But thankfully, they are near the cabin, so she can go inside and get some fresh water. As fresh of water as this cabin has, I guess. Lord knows how long it's been since the water's been turned on, you know? Maybe they should dust first, though. There's a couple of cobwebs here and there. Charlotte and Aaron were all brave and ready to take the overnight challenge until they opened the door and saw all the cobwebs, and now they're scared of the cabin? Just because there's cobwebs everywhere, maybe? I don't know, there's nothing really scary about it. But since now all three of them are too scared to go inside, they all promise to go in together at the same time. But this was just a trick to make Russell go in first. That was kind of a shitty thing to do. Even Russell feels betrayed. I would too. After the coast is clear, they start checking out the place where they find a bunch of names on the wall, where we do get a couple of Easter eggs here. You can see the name Todd Rossi here on the wall, and he was in 2 episodes of The Nightmare Room. The episodes School Spirit and Full Moon Halloween. You can also see the name Scott Murphy, who was the camper who disappeared from the house in the story earlier. But he's also a writer for the show. He wrote the episodes The Howler, School Spirit, and Four Eyes. As Aaron is listing off names on the wall, Russell perks up when he hears the name Scott Murphy. He tells the girls that Scott was the name of the kid who disappeared in the cabin a couple of years ago. But they haven't heard this story before, and so they're a little confused and have no idea what he's talking about. But rather than explain anything, he just hits him with the "never mind," and then the anime head scratch. I think Russell is just a little bit too panicked. Maybe he just needs some fresh air. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. That jump scare actually got me when I watched the episode, but I don't think it's actually scary. It's just a loud noise is going to make you jump. And if you don't believe me, you think I'm some kind of pansy, I'll hide a loud noise at some point in this video just to prove my point. The mysterious hand is just Dave being a jerk as usual, but after his little prank, Ramos starts yelling for help from the woods. The kids rush outside and split up to try and find Ramos, where Dave and Aaron find a creepy sign in the woods. But Dave thinks it's just another joke that Ramos is pulling on them to make them scared about the ghost cabin. What kind of camp is this? Is this prank camp? What's going on with these guys? Why are they pranking each other every 2 seconds? But right after they find the sign, Charlotte finds Ramos's shirt torn to pieces and his walking stick hidden in the leaves beside it. The kids get a little spooked by this and sprint back to the cabin, and when they get inside, they lock and block the door and accidentally lock Russell out for a moment. Poor guy cannot catch a break in this episode. The group decided to just stay the night in the cabin, and the next day it'll probably be revealed that it was just a joke. But if it's not, they'll head back to camp and start a search party for Ramos. That night, they take turns staying up and keeping watch for some reason, because they're scared that somebody is out there in the woods, even though they've all kind of agreed that it's probably another joke being pulled on them. And then we cut to 2 seconds later, and everyone's asleep. I'm so confused about this episode, man. Anyways, now that they're all asleep, they start hearing these drums all around them, and it's so loud that it wakes all the campers up. And it freaks Russell out, so he runs through the window to see who it is, but no one's there. And while he's looking out of the window, Dave's sleeping bag starts getting sucked down into this hole that has just appeared on the ground in the cabin. Luckily, the girls jump into action and help Dave, while Russell wasn't any help at all.
Help him! Help him! Hey, help me! Someone help me! Help him! Help him!
I don't think I want Russell around in emergency situations. After they save Dave, the door starts to shake violently, and all 4 of them tried to hold the door shut, but whatever is on the other side is too powerful and it pushes them back, and the door swings open to reveal nobody's there. Then it shuts on its own with the chilling words,
It's too late.
Obviously terrified for their lives, the kids start sprinting back to the camp, but along the way, Russell finds a can of paint that matches the color of the words that were on the door. So the jig is kind of up now, and they know that it's Ramos trying to scare them once again. And they figure that the hole in the floor must have already been there, and that also must have been him. So they're all pretty pissed that he would prank them this bad, so they go back to get payback. Next we cut to Ramos and... Is that Topanga? What the hell? That's a crazy cameo. Ramos is headed back to the cabin to grab the group and bring them back to their camp, but when they get there, the place is completely demolished, and Topanga finds that someone has painted "They belong to us" on the wall. This makes the counselors panic, and they rush out to look for the kids. Little did they know they were close by all along. They all go inside and celebrate their prank victory and plan to use his big secret to get whatever they want for the rest of camp. And this plan seems so good that Russell and Dave high-five so hard that lightning strikes and the whole world changes around them. I'm not joking, this is what happened. Just like me, the group is incredibly confused and follows a trail that should lead them back to the camp, but they can't find their camp. And after a while, they hear the same drums that were playing the night before. They run to try and escape the sound of the drums, but no matter how far they go, the drums just keep getting closer and closer. After running for a while, they take a quick rest where they find the creepy spirit doll that the kids were supposed to bring back to camp. And while they are talking about how it's weird to find the doll there, they hear a commotion in the bushes nearby. And they look to see a camp. But it's not their camp. What? Ghosts? What? Suddenly, a ton of campers surround the crew and they chant "ghost" multiple times at them. And as they do this, Russell starts putting puzzle pieces together in his brain, and he thinks that they have somehow angered the Onondaga spirits and that they actually died in the cabin last night and now they are actually ghosts. And they've made it to the ghost camp. The group run into the nearby camp where they are stopped and accused of spying on the camp. Luckily, a camp counselor they call Uncle Brian comes out to settle everybody down and actually help the group out a little bit. They tell him that they got lost in the woods and that they need to go back to Camp Hawkwood, which is just a couple of miles away from them. But this news that there's another camp kind of shocks Russell because he thought that Camp Hawkwood was the only camp in these woods. But according to Uncle Brian, there are actually multiple camps in these woods, and their camp is actually hosting an Olympic-style event for another camp that is just down the road. And apparently it's pretty serious to these guys because the camps spy on each other, and the code word for when they find a spy is ghosts. So that's why they were chanting "ghosts" at our protagonists. Uncle Brian tells the kids that he'll give the other camp a call and let them know where the group has ended up. But while they wait for Ramos to come pick them up, they can just enjoy themselves at the camp, which them and everyone else seems excited about. Everyone except this kid. While eating, Russell meets this kid named Mike, who is played by a someone who looks familiar, but I can't really put my finger on it. Anyways, they start talking about basketball play. I'm just joking, obviously. It's Frankie Muniz, who absolutely ruled the early 2000s with Malcolm in the Middle, Agent Cody Banks, and Big Fat Liar, and other movies. Okay, back to the conversation. They are talking about their favorite basketball players. Russell mentions Michael Jordan, of course, but strangely, Mike doesn't know who that is. He says that he likes the popular guys.
You know, Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, Wilt.
Who are all basketball players from the 60s. This sets alarms off in Russell's head, so he asks Mike who's the president of the country, and Mike says,
Lyndon Johnson.
Who, spoiler alert, was not the president in 2002. This conversation is starting to get a bit weird for the both of them, so they both awkwardly part ways, where Mike then calls Russell crazy. It's not very important to the story, but I think it's funny. And Russell rejoins his friends and informs them about the strange interaction he just had. And Erin comes back 2 seconds later and tells them about another strange interaction she had where some girls were talking about going to see the Beatles this summer. So Russell has a crazy new theory.
Better not be about a ghost camp.
Dave is tired of all the weird theories, but Russell actually has a point this time. The people here seem to be stuck in the 60s, and they must be stuck there as well. So Russell argues that if they're not stuck here in this camp, why hasn't Ramos showed up to pick them up yet? Which is actually a good point. So Russell himself heads to find a phone and call Ramos himself. And after he leaves, Erin and Charlotte take Russell's side on this.
You want to know the truth?
Jesus, kid, why you gotta be all jump scary? What's wrong with you? The kid mysteriously tells them to follow him, so the girls do what he asks, but Dave couldn't be bothered anymore. The kid takes the girls deep into the woods and he tells the girls to not trust Uncle Brian. He says the camp isn't what it looks like, and he tells them that he will tell them everything he knows if they just promise to help him after he tells them. And right after they give their promise, they get caught by one of the counselors. He tells the girls that the kid's name is Drew and he's not allowed to leave camp because he has problems. And then he promises the girls that their counselor Ramos is on his way. And while the girls are busy with that conversation, Russell walks into Uncle Brian's cabin, and as he does this, everybody creepily stares him down like he's doing something wrong. He knocks on the door but doesn't get an answer, so he just invites himself in. And he finds Uncle Brian's phone and tries to use it, but it doesn't work. So he follows the line and he discovers that it's been cut. Oh, and Uncle Brian found him.
Congratulations.
He creepily tells Russell that the phone is down right now and to go back to his bunk and not cause any more trouble. And then he tells his sidekick counselor to keep a close eye on Russell and make sure he doesn't get into any more trouble. And as he walks back to his bunk, he hears somebody yelling help from inside this barn. But once again, the sidekick counselor stops Russell before he can go inside the barn and tries to convince him that nobody's in there. The true gaslighter for real. Even when Russell offers that they just both go inside to check it out, the sidekick just says,
You're not gonna be in any trouble, are you?
What an odd thing to say to somebody who thinks there's a kid in danger. So Russell heads back to their temporary cabin with everybody else already there, and they try to figure out what the hell is going on with them. Dave is still pretty hard-headed about the situation and being annoying about everything, but Erin and Charlotte point out that it's weird how the sidekick counselor said that Uncle Brian called Ramos, but the phone has actually been down for a while. And it's also kind of strange how Will, the sidekick counselor, stopped Russell from going inside of a barn when he could hear somebody begging for help. So they decide to go to the barn as a group and see what's going on. They sneak inside the barn and they find nothing inside. And after a minute of looking around and calling out for anybody, they finally get an answer. The group discover that they've trapped Drew in one of the horse stalls in the barn, and he says that Uncle Brian put him there because he doesn't want Drew to talk to anyone. Drew finally reveals that they can never leave the camp because they are now prisoners to the camp. He says that no one can save them because there are no phones to call for help, but Drew does know one way to escape. All they have to do is let him out. But the door is padlocked shut. Luckily, there's a handy-dandy axe hanging on the wall over here. They release Drew and immediately get caught by the whole camp. The camp surround the group and lock Drew back in the stall again. Wow, that didn't really take long at all. And Uncle Brian reveals that they're not the only prisoners to the camp. Everyone at the camp is a prisoner. Next, we cut to an explanation. Finally! As we all know, the land that the camp was built on was once owned by a Native American tribe called the Onondaga. A spell was cast by the tribe to protect the land from any harm. After a while, people forgot about this spell and then it became like a myth. So a camp was built on the land one day. And one day during camp, the sun never rose, leaving everyone cold and in the dark. And that's when many Onondaga spirits came back to take back the land that they destroyed. To get out of this situation, Uncle Brian made a deal with the spirits to save everyone's life. The deal was that the camp with everyone in it would disappear except for one weekend each year, which just so happens to be the weekend that they were staying in the ghost cabin. And tonight the camp would disappear again for a whole nother year. Most of the other campers don't know what's going on, and that's why they still think they're in the 1960s. And 30 years later, they rebuilt the camp, and that's where our group came from. And even though they are granted one weekend a year, they still have to be very careful not to harm any of the land or they'll anger the spirits once again. And apparently Drew did something incredibly dangerous, and that's why he's locked away so he doesn't cause any trouble. Luckily for our crew, they haven't been on the campgrounds long enough to be affected by the curse, and as long as they promise to keep the camp a secret, they will be allowed to leave. But if they do tell, the spell will be broken and everyone at the camp will disappear forever. But if you really think about it, they have already disappeared to the rest of the world. So wouldn't it not matter? Like, technically they're still there and alive, but the rest of the world thinks they're gone. So what's the harm in telling the secret? At least you'll let these other campers that don't know what's going on finally rest in peace or something, you know? It's kind of just a strange situation they're in right now. Right after they explain everything, the sidekick comes in a panic and tells everyone that Drew escaped from the stall. Everybody rushes outside to try and find him, and they do find him standing next to a tree with the axe from earlier. Uncle Brian tries to calm Drew down, but I think an eternity at Camp Hawkwood is starting to get to him a little bit. He shouts about how he doesn't care what happens to everybody because he never wanted to go to this camp in the first place. But he was forced to go to camp by his parents and then forced to stay there forever. Then Drew plunges the axe into the tree, destroying the land and angering the spirits. Suddenly, a terrible storm surrounds them, and Drew keeps chopping the tree down very angrily and viciously. Finally, Russell mans up and takes matters into his own hands. He rushes Drew and absolutely sacks him. Like, it sounds like it hurts a lot. Russell then rips the axe out of the tree, but it's too late. All the campers and the camp itself slowly disappear without a trace. Our group of campers sprint back through the woods and back into the haunted cabin. But right when the cabin gets into viewing distance, the spirits decide they want to take Russell with them. A vine wraps around his leg and yanks him to the ground. And sadly, because of all the commotion, nobody hears Russell's plea for help. The deadly shadows start slowly floating over Russell as he tries his best to escape the vine. And while he is struggling outside, the other three start slowly disappearing out of existence. Luckily for Russell, he tried to protect their sacred land, so the spirits forgive him and his friends. The storm suddenly stops and the vine releases from his leg. And everyone comes out from their cover to see that everything has changed back to the way it was before. But it does look like the trip has taken a major toll on Russell.
Russell! Russell, you okay, man? I'm good, how are you?
Nah, I'm just joking. It was his turn for a prank. The next day, they head back to the camp with Ramos yelling at them for giving him and everyone else a heart attack because they thought they just disappeared.
We thought you disappeared.
Are we supposed to?
Ah, he got you there, Ramos. And the kid from earlier asked Russell if the cabin was actually really scary, but Russell just tells the kid
It's nothing.
and gives him the sacred doll that the other campers had left in the woods. And we end off the episode with R.L. Stine saying, "Every camp has its stories told in the dark of the night, around a roaring fire. Stories that bring a shiver to the hottest summer night. Stories that can't possibly be true.
Unless the campfire burns in the nightmare room."
See, it is scary. And that's how the episode ends. Honestly, it's not that bad. It's a really great story and a really good way to end off the season and series. It's one of the more solid stories in the whole show, but there are a few confusing things here and there and plot holes everywhere, honestly. And it does move kind of fast sometimes. Like, I feel like I'm getting whiplash when I talk about one scene and move on to another scene because it just cuts to this new scene all of a sudden. I guess it just has some flowing issues. That's what I'm trying to say. But I kind of give it some slack because it is a kid's show after all. And I do wish that there was an actual, like, scary moment in this episode. I understand that kids being in a ghost camp was supposed to be the scary part, but I mean, like, a scene that really sticks with you. Maybe they, like, actually see a ghost of an Onondaga tribe member in the cabin the first night. Or they find something actually chasing them in the woods. It just kind of sucks that all the jump scares in this episode were just people pulling pranks and nothing scary actually happened. Now, don't get me wrong, if I found myself stuck at a camp full of people from the 60s and I learned that it was because of a really old curse, I'd freak out, yeah. I think that's a reasonable time to freak out. I just wish there was a little more to the episode is all. And this episode did try to fill time. They added little scenes that last maybe 30 seconds that we really don't need in these episodes. Like, for example, whenever Charlotte and Russell are talking in the middle of the night in the cabin, they kind of just immediately make that not relevant because everybody's asleep 2 seconds later. We don't need that scene in the story. There was a lot of stuff like that. It was just like little quick scenes that just seemed to fill time. Honestly, I think they could have made this a 1 episode endeavor, but they had to spread it out to 2 apparently. Also, I wanted to point out that Drew was played by Dan Bird, who you might have seen in the Hills Have Eyes remake, or the Cinderella story, which my sister watched constantly, or even Easy A, which is probably the best movie out of the 3. Now, like I said earlier, this episode is based off of a book with the same name that's in the series, and they have a ton of differences. So many that I'm going to list a couple here. For one, they completely omitted a character named Marty from the group. And in the book, Ramos was actually a Native American, not just a white guy cosplaying, like most of us do. And while we're at it, Russell was hinted to be a white guy and Dave was actually a black guy. So they kind of just swapped races. In the book, the Onondaga tribe are more sympathetic. It talks about how there are Civil War soldiers that destroyed their sacred grounds, and that's why they put a spell on the land to protect it. The episode also omits the Forbidden Falls, which they have to go over to reach the haunted cabin. It's one of the more important things in the story, but not in the episode at all, probably for budget reasons. And finally, Russell hears the drums way earlier in the book. All the way back at camp, he hears those drums. Now, that's just a couple of the differences. I'm sure there's a lot more, but that's the ones that I noticed right off the bat. But yeah, let me know what you think about this episode in the comments below. Don't forget to click the link below and pledge for a plushie of me. I have a Patreon. The $5 members get bonus content plus videos a day early, maybe some pictures of my cats, a Discord server, and your name right here on screen. And YouTube members are lumped in with them. And I want to give a major shout out to Horror Diva, who gifted 100 members on our last stream Friday. So many members that I can't even fit it in my little Patreon member box. So thank you so much for that. I really appreciate you. Like the video if you like the video. Thank you for watching the video all the way through. I appreciate you all, and peace.